Being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. Being the fastest quarterback you've never seen. I'll be right back. There's no quicker way to get into DFS. Play Super Draft today and see for yourself.
Happy Monday, everybody. We're going to start right into Football University. It's another episode of Football University with me, Matt Caddell. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but we are glad to have everybody on for another exciting episode where we're going to talk anything and everything football, and we're going to bring it back to the number one program, the University of Alabama. So roll Tide, roll to all the Bama fans out there. Listen, we're on the CTS-Sports room. You can watch us on YouTube as well as Twitter. So this is the Football University. So I don't know if the signal went out, but listen, you can follow us here at Football University on the CTS-Sports room, on YouTube, on Twitter, and as always, in the chats on Facebook with the student section, RTR. Like I said, we're going to discuss everything. Bama in the top, former Bama players in the top 100 in the NFL. We're going to highlight a few players, some of my thoughts regarding this year's football team. We're going to talk about the coordinators as usual. We might mention Saban here and there. And, we're going to take all your questions in the student section. So, let's start with my first topic. So shouts out to Stephen Hicks, Lori Caddell, Linda P. Who else is in the student section? C. Bama, welcome to the Football University. Let's get it. Bama, we always start with Bama talk. So my first topic I want to discuss is I'm going to shift gears to the NFL, and I want to discuss Alabama players in the NFL. So, each year the NFL Network, they do a top 100 list of, the top 100 players in the NFL. And this year, a clip broke out of Devontae Smith. We know Devontae Smith, Biletnikoff winner, Heisman Trophy finalist here at the University of Alabama and currently with the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts. He discussed who his toughest defensive back matchup was, and this clip broke. Patrick Surtain was what he said, and he talked about Patrick Surtain's IQ, how he defends, how he's patient, how he studies the game, and I thought that was so interesting, and it made me think, I wonder how many players, possibly that former Alabama players that would be on this NFL list, and it got me thinking about a few. I think Devontae Smith makes it. Patrick Surtain II, Josh Jacobs. We know he was the NFL leading rusher for the Las Vegas Raiders. I was about to call them the Oakland Raiders. Minka Fitzpatrick, Deron Payne, and, of course, Quentin Williams and, Jalen Hurts. So I think Alabama probably leads in the NFL when it comes to players in the NFL top 100. That just speaks to how great these former players are at the University of Alabama, their development. I still always say that Alabama puts the best product in the NFL, and the players tend to be a little bit more refined and more successful in the NFL. So listen, I think Alabama RTR is going to have at least 8 former players in the NFL top 100. So, man, I just want to discuss that. So I wanted to name a few of those names. So let's get to the student section. So I talked about the former Bama players. So let's go to this year and let's talk about this current Alabama football team. 6-0 is always ready. He says to hunt, to stalk, intimidate, be relentless, have a killer instinct, create a nightmare for this way of the Crimson Tide. RTR, listen, it is all about this year's 2023 football team. I mean, you look at the new additions. You know, Coach Saban looked like he has more new energy, a little bit more enthusiasm, a little bit more confidence. He's looking like the old Saban. I think he addressed the biggest issues moving forward this year, to your point, 6-0, which was Bill O'Brien and Pete Golden. And he got Tommy Rees as well as Kevin Steele. And I think, you know, he's seen having a little bit more energy, a lot more juice. I think it's paying off in the recruiting this year's next 2-year classes. So, listen, I'm excited about this year's team. You look at Tommy Rees, and we're going to pause and talk about the coordinators, and we're going to start with Tommy Rees. You know, well, I'll say Tommy Rees. Let's talk with Kevin Steele because, you know, we got the hunt. I think Kevin Steele, with the development on our defensive, you know, line, Freddie Roach, Holzer, Robert Bala, the energy, enthusiasm, the physicality and intensity. I think you look at a Kevin Steele, and he's going to let these guys hunt. I think he's going to arrange all the talent together, and he's just going to be in his bag, utilizing all this talent that we have this year. And I think they're going to make a statement versus Texas that second week in Bryant-Denny, in Tuscaloosa. Having Texas come to Tuscaloosa, I think is probably going to be, if not the biggest game of the year. But Bama's going to be looking to hunt, to stalk, to intimidate, and hunt, stalk, intimidate, and be relentless. Listen, I'm getting the call. That's Kevin Steele right there. But yeah, we got to create a nightmare. I think Alabama's going to get back to that type of physicality, intensity on the defensive end and up front on the offensive line. I think we're going to get back running the ball. We're 6 deep at running back. Tommy Rees having that type of methodical approach. I think we're going to be a nightmare for a team. So, yeah. So, let's go in the student section. Y'all are ripping and rolling. Joe Stapleton says, hey, Matt, Stallions going back to the championships. Shouts out to the Birmingham Stallions. You know, I think they're going to the South Division Championship, so hopefully they can pull it all in. And, you know, we got a few former Bama players. I know Reuben Foster's was successful with both Scarborough last year. But I think Reuben could easily make a jump, maybe get an invite to an NFL camp this fall. So maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers. Listen, Reuben Foster is still talented. He's shown that in the USFL. So shouts out to the Stallions going back to the championship. So, yes, so let's go. Let's talk about this team. The team is telling Coach Saban, thank you for what you do. The beatdown is for you. We got this. I think, to your point, great point, Stephen Hicks. You know, Coach Saban, if you look at the way this team is, and we've discussed this on the show, you know, how this team needs to develop off the field, developing that chemistry, the camaraderie, the bonding, the unification of the team, that brotherhood that is going to separate the team moving forward. So I just think, you know, to your point, Stephen Hicks, the team's got Coach Saban's back, and I think Coach Saban's got the players back. And I think that's just a great relationship. Coach Saban's going to keep these guys motivated, and Coach Saban's going to bring the best out of these guys. And so these guys are going to be ready to rock and roll this year. I'm not going to say a revenge tour, but I think Alabama is going to be on the hunt, on the prowl in 2023. So I'm excited. Listen, roll tide roll. Let's get to another comment. Listen, y'all are rolling. Thank you for these comments. Lori Caddell says Alabama actually plays football, has a real schedule. That's why the players are ready for the NFL. I mean, it starts in SEC, you know, but in Alabama, traditionally, historically, you're known to be kind of the best of the best when it comes to the SEC, especially with being in the SEC West, always having to go through the toughest road. And you're always in the spotlight. As soon as you come to Alabama, the hype, the development of Coach Saban, you're able to really have that mental toughness, that character to go out there and perform at a high level. You look at some of the players I mentioned earlier about being in the NFL top 100, the Josh Jacobs, the Patrick Surtain, the second, the Devontae Smith, the Jalen Hurts, the Jalen Waddle. I mean, these guys are so great and dynamic in the NFL. And to your point, playing the SEC schedule, coming out of Alabama, having that professionalism, they're ready to get to the NFL. And that's why I think NFL teams, they love to draft Alabama players. It's just a great. You look at Bryce, you look at Will Anderson. We're going to discuss Bryce Young, kind of some Charlotte news. So shouts out to all the people in Charlotte up there. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. So let's go to Spencer's point. Let's stay on the 2023 team. I mentioned the coordinators, Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele, Kevin Steele leading that tenacity, the intense, that energy, the enthusiastic type of defense on physicality, hitting offenses in the mouth, stopping the run, defending these top offenses, being able to make adjustments, and just being physical. I think that's what Alabama is going to prove a point this year. I keep mentioning back. I think Coach Saban's got his guys. He can develop a young guy in Tommy Rees that kind of mold him to be an ultra offensive-minded genius, which he already is, but really be able to out-scheme these vaunted defenses. So while we're talking about Alabama proving a point, which leads me to my next topic, our offensive coordinators, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, talking about Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees. Like I said, I think Coach Saban's got that little bit of his swagger back. He's looking like the old Saban. Our football team's looking like an Alabama Nick Saban defense championship competitive team. We're physical. We have depth, and we just got to continue to develop. But this got me to my next point. I want to pause and talk about our offensive coordinators. And I think one thing we lacked from last year was our offensive coordinators really putting their staple statements on games. I feel like probably some of the best, and I say statements as far as I make the analogy of all the musical fans, whether it's a band or orchestra or whoever, where you're a producer, you have to be able to conduct and, be able to produce, mix and match, make sure you make great music. You know what I'm saying? So I think Alabama, our coordinators need to be able to make sure they arrange, or they're making, the writer, they're making sure they're writing a great arrangement, putting together an effective game plan on Saturdays. I think you look at some of the former coordinators, you look at Kirby when he was a D coordinator, but you may look at our offensive coordinators. Lane Kiffin will make a statement each game. Steve Sarkisian will make an offensive statement with his creativity, calling a game plan. You can tell he was in his bag. Even going back to McElwain, Loxley, those type of guys really put a statement as far as constructing an offensive game plan. So I think it's important that Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele, they kind of conduct their teams, whether it's offense or defense, and put their statements on these games. Like when we play Texas, let's put on a clinic on their offense. Like, let's clamp them down. Get in your bag, Kevin Steele. Orchestrate, make music by your play calling. Let's go out there and just be dominant. And Tommy Rees put on a clinic. And when I think of Tommy Rees, I think this is how parts of our offense is going to look like. I know we got a lot of 49ers fans out there. I know we got a lot of Rise Up Falcons fans in the student section. But I want to say, when I think of Tommy Rees, the little film that I've looked at, I think he has such a automatically, when I think about who is his comp in the NFL, and I automatically think about kind of a Kyle Shanahan type, whereas he just knows how to dissect defenses and go after their weaknesses, using his personnel, being constant with the running game, keeping it simple, getting easy throws, working the middle of the field, working outside, feeding it to players who are mismatch problems. I think that's what Tommy Rees is going to do, kind of have like a Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49ers kind of approach to, just always in the game offensively, where, even if there's a lack in talent, they're still able to be effective and play mismatch and score on these top NFL defenses. I mean, they're in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago with Jimmy Garoppolo. So, I mean, that just shows you how great of a play caller Kyle Shanahan is, and I think that's how kind of Tommy Rees is going to approach. But I think Tommy Rees has a lot more weapons to play with. Speaking of the 49ers, you look at, and we have a lot of similarities. You look at Christian McCaffrey. I think with his explosiveness, coming in and out, ready to catch the ball out the backfield, vision-wise, hitting the hole, accelerating, kind of being that complete black. I think we have a lot of running backs to offer, but I kind of look at a Justice Haynes almost, a Jam Miller. You look at a McClellan, guy that he reminds me kind of a Raheem Mostert for the Miami Dolphins, consistent runner, downhill, explosive. So I think our offense, and you know who the Deebo Samuel is. It's Kendrick Law. I mean, I think if we kind of use the Kendrick Law like a dynamic Deebo Samuel, put him at just get him as many touches as possible in a game, especially if he's on fire. Shanahan will feed Deebo Samuel to get him going, whether that's at running back, put him in the wildcat, in the slot, out wide, a lot of reverses, passes. He does it all. Put him at. So I think that's what Kendrick Law can do for our offense. And I think we're going to have that physical offensive line. You look at Trent Williams, you look at a J.C. Latham, Booker, Seth McLaughlin. I mean, our offensive line are going to be physical. So I think that's kind of approach we're going to have with the Tommy Rees. We're going to kind of look like the 49ers, but I think with a lot more talent. And on the defensive end, we know D'Amico Ryan. Shouts out to D'Amico Ryan, who's now the head coach for the Houston Texans out there with Will Anderson. But listen, you look at how D'Amico Ryans had that San Francisco 49ers defense. You look at Kevin Steele, look at the talent that he has. I mean, what pops out to me with that San Francisco 49ers defense was the linebackers. I mean, Fred Warner, you look at our linebackers, you look at Greenlaw, no matter who they put out there, they're like 4 or 5 deep at the linebacker position. So you look at a Fred Warner, you look at a Lawson, you look at a Jahad Campbell, you look at a Justin Jefferson, you look at all these matchup problems, multiple variations. We can arrange this talent, orchestrate this talent where we can just be so dominant on the defensive end, like the San Francisco 49ers out there in San Francisco Bay. You look at a Nick Bosa, I think you can draw the parallel with a Dallas Turner. I think Dallas Turner needs to have that type of impact. You look at some of the defensive linemen, Armstead, Jaheim Otis could be that. You look at the secondary, we got talent on the defensive end, but I think we have more talent. So I think Coach Saban is going to, we're going to have a really good dominant approach to get back in the hunt this year. So those were some of the points that I want to talk about. So let's get to the student section. I know y'all are on one. Let's see. Oh, great point. The 49ers do have Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk. Like I said, I think McCaffrey, with his kind of explosiveness, you look at Christian McCaffrey, he was with the Carolina Panthers for so long. But once he got to San Francisco, I mean, he had that breakout game where he was like, listen, he scored like 3 different touchdowns 3 different ways. And I kind of see a little Justice Haynes in his game. So, but yeah, and Brandon Ayuk, I think you look at a Brandon Ayuk, you look at a Isaiah Bond or, maybe like a Kobe Prentice or something like, or Malik Benson, those type of playmakers. So listen, I think Alabama's football team is going to look a little similar like the 49ers, but I think we have a little bit more talent. I think we got Coach Saban, we got Tommy Rees, Kevin Steele. We're gonna make it happen in the SEC. Steven Hicks says, I'm ready to see Malik Benson and Haynes play. Me too. I can't wait. I'm ready to see the tide roll, week 1 versus Middle Tennessee State, and that Texas game, I can't talk about it enough. That is going to be so entertaining, exciting game in Bryant-Denny under the lights. So Saban can break as many headsets as he wants. He's got the back. You can thank the Bullwicker for that. Listen, Coach Saban, he can break as many headsets as he wants, and since we're talking about Coach Saban, let's take a pause right there. And Coach Saban, he's, like I mentioned earlier, he's looking like he's getting back to his old self, being the head man, got his swagger back, as he says, kind of have his confidence, his juice back. He's got recruits, it's big time of the year. And video broke this past weekend, Coach Saban doing the electric slide. Miss Terry, and Miss Terry is one of one. She's always really hip, knows how to do all the new trendy dances. But Coach Saban doing the electric slide, and I think the cha-cha slide, or maybe the wobble. I don't know. I'm quite sure if the wobble came on, Coach Saban knows what to do. He can hold his own. But to your point, I think Saban is getting back to the confident Saban where he's looking to exert his dominance and show everybody why he's the GOAT, especially with the emergence of Kirby winning the national championship back-to-back years. We know the Georgia fans are going to run their mouth, and everybody's doubting Saban. Feinbaum said he doesn't have a quarterback and yada, yada, yada. But like I always say here at Football University, keep it coming. Keep putting fuel in the fire. Because like we said earlier, I think Bama is on the prowl this year. William Bryce says, I'll buy Coach Saban a headset. That is so funny. Oh, Linda P. You listen, we're on a couple 20-some minutes into the show, and Linda P is already firing shots down there to Athens country. She said, Georgia fans talking about their underdogs. Bama dog mentality is going to speak for themselves. Them boys are ready and hungry and to eat. Roll dang tide. Listen, I think it's important this year. Alabama has to win the SEC West. They got to beat LSU. I think LSU is going to come down to that Alabama LSU. I always think the SEC West is so much better when Alabama LSU is kind of the top two teams. And we lost it last year. I don't think we're going to lose it this year. And listen, Georgia, I think, they're back-to-back national championships. They're bringing in a new quarterback, but, Kirby's got a lot of talent. They're in the SEC East. But I do think in the SEC East it's going to come down to either Georgia, Tennessee, or South Carolina. But I'm hoping that Georgia makes it because I want to play Georgia in Atlanta just that way we can finally meet and, we can hash it out versus these Bulldogs. So I'm be excited about that. And hopefully David Pollock's there too. So let's stay in the student section. Somebody says 4-year-old has seen more national titles. Roll Tide Roll. Jeff Stapleton, listen. He says, listen, Saban's angry. He's got the old coach back. Listen, he's getting his swagger back, man. He's looking like, I told you, he's doing the wobble, cha-cha slide, electric slide. He's doing it all. That's how Saban is. That's the Saban. The last year, Saban, I didn't really look like Coach Saban. I was a little bit nervous, a little bit worried during the Saban because, listen, I got recruited by him. I played under him. I played against him. I know how fiery and intense of a coach he was. And I think, he really didn't have the confidence in his coordinators, i.e. Bill O'Brien, Pete Golden. Obviously, it showed because we had all the talent in the world, but we could not we just kept circling the wagon. I'll leave it at that. But listen, Coach Saban, I think he's more confident. I think he's got that juice. So, Coach Saban, if you're out there listening to Football University, keep doing your thing, doing the electric slide out there, you and Miss Terry enjoying life. So let's stay right here. Spencer has a great comment right here. It says, Matt, do you know of any better schedule for Alabama to prove a point and build for their future? Alabama, we have the SEC East. I mean, not the SEC East, the SEC West, forgive me. It's always a tough road. We always start with LSU, I mentioned Tennessee is a big rivalry, Auburn, of course. And then, this year we got Ole Miss and Mississippi State, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Going down to Auburn is going to be tough. We got Tennessee coming home. We got to go do College Station next year. We got Arkansas for homecoming. That's going to be interesting. We're going to do some shows about that Arkansas game from 2007. So we're going to talk about that. But listen, Alabama always has a great schedule. But I think even more so next year, that 2024 schedule going into the 2024 year where it's the 12-team playoff. You look at Alabama's schedule, I think Alabama's got the toughest schedule, which how it should be. And I think Alabama has to embrace that. Like, I don't want to complain about it, but that's what, to me, that's what makes Alabama Alabama. And we embrace it. We like playing against the toughest schedule in the SEC because that's what makes Alabama. Alabama shows how that we're built different, and we got to go out there and prove it each and every Saturday versus these top teams, especially in 2024. We got Georgia coming to the house. We got, obviously, we play Auburn, LSU, Tennessee, play South Carolina. We play Georgia, I mentioned. We got Vandy towards the end. We got Wisconsin. We got Oklahoma. So that's going to be some interesting games. So I think we have the schedule to prove why we're different, we're built different, and why we're just Alabama. We're on another level. So great point by my main man, Spencer. Stephen Hicks said, Bama needs to answer one question. How bad do you want this? I agree. Like I said, I think Coach Saban is getting back to having, like I mentioned, his swagger back, having that confidence. And when it comes to the mental component of it, the psyche, the psychological advantage, I think Coach Saban is going to get back kind of in his bag, having that confidence where we go play SEC teams on Saturdays and they are already wishing they did not have to play Alabama, having that psychological advantage. So I think we're going to be dominant like that, getting back to showing Alabama how bad do we want it. So, yeah, great point by Van Edwards. He says, listen, Alabama has everything to prove themselves this year, especially the last 2 years. Listen, I wanted Bryce Young and Will Anderson to win a national championship, and I hate that they didn't. I thought they were going to get back this year. But like I said, we lost the LSU game and we lost the Tennessee game, which we shouldn't have lost. But we did. It should have, could have, would have, but we didn't. So to your point, Van Ellis, I think Alabama is looking to prove themselves and prove how great they want to be this year. And you look at this team, I mentioned Tommy Rees, Kevin Steele, that type of leadership, that type of juice, the other assistant coaches. But you look at this 2023 class. I think these guys are coming in. They're kind of like that 17 class of Tua, Smitty, Waddle, and all them. Where, listen, if you're wasting time, we're coming. We're good enough to start. So they're going to push everybody on this roster to be that much more, better and greater, perform at an even higher level. So that 23 class with the new juice of Reese and still, I'm excited about Bama getting back to handling business and winning the SEC West. So we'll leave it at that. So, wow, y'all are rocking and rolling. James Knox, shouts out to James Knox, got a great point. He says, I felt like Andy telling Aunt B to call the man, just run the ball. Yeah, we're getting back to old school, simple football. Like I mentioned last week, if you tuned into Football University, we got to bring back that Alabama power. You look at the 92 teams. Historically, Alabama has been – the successful Alabama teams have always ran the ball and been hard-nosed hitting on defense. So that's what Alabama is going to get back to, just being dominant. I mentioned having the psychological advantage. Saban getting back his juice. He's now got coordinators that know what they're doing. He can stay on them and make sure they continue to be super creative and dominant on both sides of the ball, special teams. So, listen, we're going to run the ball. And I think Tommy Rees has a hat that says run the ball. So I'm excited about that. That running the ball needs to be our constant thing throughout the season because it's a long season and we got so many running backs, we got so many linemen. We can just wear down teams and win games like that. Make it easy on our defense. Get in, get out, get the W's, and keep everybody healthy. So that's my 2 cents. So, Van Edwards. So talking about the OC, great. Where did Van Edwards? This was a great comment. Talking about Tommy Reese, you know, he says, I'm not sure we're going to be as simple as y'all think. I think the OC has talent he has never had before. Hence a more creative offense. I think it will be a more creative offense, but I think, like I said, I think it'll be kind of like Kyle Shanahan, where it's simple, but it's creative and effective. And I think we have more talent. Whereas, to your point, Van Edwards, listen, Tommy Reese could really orchestrate and really get in his bag and keep defenses on their heels with all the weapons that we have. I mean, you look at the running backs, you look at the tight ends. I mean, Dupree, Niblack, all those tight ends that we have. I mean, he can really do a lot. And with all the receivers we have talented, the Kobe Prentice, Isaiah Bond, Ja'Cory Brooks, even Burton. But you look at a Kendrick Law, who I said he could possibly be a human highlight reel, a guy that we could, utilize all across the field and be a matchup nightmare. So yeah, I think Tommy Reese, to your point, is going to have so much talent, but I think he's going to keep it simple where he doesn't overthink it, but he's going to have a lot of creativity where it's going to really kind of have like a little Michael Wayne / Kiffin Sark approach where he's just dominant and creative, confusing defenses. So great point. Van Edwards, my brother. Shouts out to Van Edwards. Brian Green says, this defense isn't hugging Henry defense. No, it is not. It will not be hugging. It will be hitting defense with our physicality. I mean, you look spring game. It was actually the first time I saw defense hitting. I mean, physical. I mean, I saw when Robert Bala came, they were actually doing hitting players, not hitting a sled machine. Like they were hitting people and getting the pads popping. Under Pete Golden, the pads didn't pop like that, like they should, but you're going to be paying pads popping like when Reuben Foster and Mac Wilson and all those guys. We're going to be laying that wood out there this year, so we won't be hungry Henry this year. So Carla Hinton has a great point. She says, is Tommy Reese on the same level as the Steve Sarkisian? I think he is on the collegiate level. I know Coach Saban really wanted somebody who can call the college game, who know how to really scheme, might not have the best talent in the world, but he's have to be creative, to Van Edwards' points, with the talent he has. And Tommy Reese coming from Notre Dame, listen, he didn't have all the talent in the world. He coached he was Brian Kelly's offensive coordinator when he was at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly thought really highly of him. He wanted him to come to LSU, but yet he decided to stay up there with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. And you look this past year, yes, they, lost to Ohio State and, they beat South Carolina, but they beat Clemson. They did not have a Justice Haynes or C.J. Dupree or Navarre Niblack or Danny Lewis or Kendrick Law. He did not have all those weapons, and he was still having to outperform, out-scheme defenses. So you can only imagine what he would do with all the talent and the pieces that he has. As I mentioned earlier, Prentice, Law, McClellan, and Jam Miller, all these pieces. He's going to be the ultra creative genius, and I think that will put him on the level as Sark. Sark would get in his bag. He could match up nightmares. But great point right there, Miss Hinton. William Bryan says, I want a better than Sark. Listen, I think he has the potential once he gets the feel of like how Coach Saban likes to call the game, keeping things constant, and he knows, how to, work the middle of the field, play matchups, with all the talent that he has. And he has the quarterback that's going to run his offense. I think he's going to be in his bag, but it's going to be important that we have a quarterback that takes command of the offense. I don't know if it's going to be Milroe, Simpson, or whoever, but whoever, executes the offense, takes command of the offense, and builds excellent around the other players and hold those guys accountable like a AJ McCarron did. I think we're going to be so effective on the offensive end, getting us in the right play, getting us in the right front, not turning the ball over, and just dominating defenses. So I think that's going to be a key component for Tommy Rees, for him to be better than Sark. So great point, great point. So let's see, great point. Stephen Hicks says, I want the defense to hit hard, and I'll be right back to stay down. Listen, they're going to be – you can tell by the spring game, the 8A game, listen, Jake Pope, he laid that wood on Jermaine Burton. Like, it just shows you the physicality that we have on the defensive end and the back end. T-Rob, Coach Saban, linebackers, Robert Bala, Kevin Steele, up front. Front fours getting to the quarterback, Holzer. So our defense are going to get back to flying around and hunting and hitting people in their mouth. So listen, I'm excited about that. So let's get to my next point. I want to go back to the SEC schedule. I think somebody mentioned I think Spencer mentioned that Alabama has, the schedule to prove themselves. I know we're going to have the 2024 schedule. We're going to play, top 3 teams in the SEC East, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia. We still retain, we got to play Wisconsin, Oklahoma, Tennessee, LSU, Auburn. So it's still going to be intense schedule. But, I do want to say that I hope that the SEC, instead of having one bye week, I think with the 8-game schedule and Alabama playing such a big out-of-conference game, I think to have a little bit more parity, we can maybe get 2 bye weeks in for each team in the 2024 season, because we have additional 2 more teams with Texas as well as Oklahoma. So hopefully the SEC, if you're tuned in to Football University, listen, give these teams at least 2 bye weeks. I think that can go a long way, especially having the college football playoff as well as an additional 8-game regular season SEC schedule. So it's going to be interesting to see. So hopefully, SEC commissioners, thank you if you're out there listening to Football University. Next year, let's get 2 bye weeks. Let's do it. So let's get 2 bye weeks. So let's get in the student section. Let's go back. I know y'all got a few comments. Let's see. Y'all are rocking and rolling. So, and great point right here. Brian Green says, teams will get tired of chasing fresh legs, talking about those running backs and receivers, and they're going to get tired of seeing the tight end over the top. I think you look at Tommy Rees, he knows how to, manipulate defenses. He's looking at certain tendencies that defenses are doing, players doing. He's going to be able to play mismatch, sneak guys out, and just, be very methodical and creative approach. Like I mentioned earlier, like a Kyle Shanahan, and get in this bag and really affect these defenses. So great comment right there by Brian Green. Carla Henn says, great comment right here. She says, how many days before kickoff? I'm excited to see Alabama play dynamic weapons we have. Listen, I think we are 77 days away. If I'm not mistaken. No, I don't know. Maybe 66 days away. 66 days away, but it should be soon. The 4th of July weekend is coming up. So after the 4th of July, that's kind of like the last kind of vacation time. And, after that, it is all on 2023 season. Next thing you know, it's going to be finishing up summer school, going into fall camp in August. That we're going to be hearing a lot of noise about training camp. You know, the guys are going to be separating themselves. It's going to be interesting to see what the quarterbacks look like as well as the receivers. So just going to be interesting to see what it's going to look like for this 2023 team. So, yeah, I'm excited this year as well. So let's go right here. Another great comment. What is the receiver room looking like this year? You know, I mentioned a few of the names. You know, I mentioned Ja'Cory Brooks. I mentioned Jermaine Burton. I think, you know, Burton, they need to, I think the receiver room, for me, being a former receiver, I think they just all holistically need to work on their game, you know, working on the intricacies, the details, whether it's route running, catching the ball, you know, hand-eye coordination. I think that can take our offense to the next level. But you look at the playmakers we have. I mentioned Kendrick Law. I think he's like our Debo Samuel, Isaiah Bond, Kobe Prentice. I mean, he's another player that you can, you know, mismatch problem, middle of the field, reverses. He's one of those elite weapons. And Ja'Cory Brooks, Burton, with so many guys. You know, I mentioned Kendrick Law, Shaz Preston. It's going to be interesting to see all the talent that we have and how we can utilize that receiver room. But I think we got enough talent in the receiver room to be effective. We talked about Tommy Reese, but I think we got to have a quarterback that gets the ball to these guys. And the receivers, like I said earlier, they got to catch the ball. Like, they got to make sure, since we're bringing in another quarterback, but they got to make sure that we are not, you know, dropping the ball, taking advantage of every opportunity that ball comes in, like how, you know, Judy and Ruggs and Devontae Smith and those guys they were ball hawks. You know, we got to get back to being ball hawks. And I'll start with the receivers. You look at, I mentioned Judy, Waddle, Ruggs, Smitty, all those guys. When the ball was in the air, no other defensive back was going to come down with that ball. So our receivers got to make sure they get back to that, having that type of mentality, that ball hawk mentality, where the ball is in the air. Not only are we catching it, but we're not letting the defender make the play, because we're going to make sure we time up our route, you know, see the ball and catch the ball and just be that ball hawk mentality. So, yeah, I think that's what's going to help our receivers go to the next level this year, but it's got to start with the quarterbacks. You know, Van Edwards says depth's winning championships for now in the future. Like, I agree. I do think Alabama, Coach Saban, with the talent that we have, we're going to get back to, you know, having more energy, enthusiasm for these guys. But we're going to develop. I think we have so much talent. We can continue to develop that depth throughout the season, because it's a long season. You know, we can rotate more guys, play more young guys, you know, and intensify the competition. That's going to help in the long run, when we can play so many more guys down the road that has that SEC level depth that's going to put us over the top this year. A lot of talk about Tommy Reese. I love it. If Reese figures it out by the use of talent, they will be scary good. Yes, it could be scary hours for Alabama's offense with Tommy Reese. I mean, the way you look at Coach Saban, the way he did it, you know, he flew the Alabama private jet to South Bend, Indiana. Listen, what a flex. He flown left, walked right out of his office and hopped in the Alabama private jet in South Bend, Indiana. What? That's pretty big flex. Listen, that just shows you how important, how key Tommy Reese is to the success of this offense, this team. And I think Coach Saban's going to develop him to be that creative genius on the offensive end. So, listen, it can be scary hours with our physical offensive approach and just utilizing, getting the ball to our playmakers. It could be scary hours out there, Brian Green. So, great comment. So, let's get to my next topic. Since we're talking about the 2023 team, this year team, I want to highlight a few players. I kind of mentioned, you know, Justice Hayes, some of the running backs this year. And I kind of alluded to, like, Kendrick Law, how he's our Debo Samuel. You know, we can put him at running back. He could be split out wide, all those things. But I think, he's like a Debo Samuel. You can put him in different positions, get him touches. So I talked about Kendrick Law. I mentioned Christian McCaffrey with a little Justice Hayes comparison, talking when I was regarding the San Francisco 49ers offense. But I want to talk about Kool-Aid. And I think Kool-Aid, if I had a wish list for Kool-Aid, it would be for Kool-Aid to be kind of like Charles Woodson was when he won the Heisman up there in Michigan for the Michigan Wolverines. Kool-Aid, if you look at his high school tape, Kool-Aid was just one of the top athletes to ever come out the state of Alabama. The guy played off receiver, quarterback, receiver, DB. He could do it all. Punt returner. This guy is one of those playmakers that if he gets touches, he can, continue to get a better feel for the game and be that much more dominant. So I want to talk about Kool-Aid now. If he could be like Charles Woodson was, when they won a national championship, and he won the Heisman, beating out Peyton Manning. You look at him playing corner, like he was unreal playing corner, but he could punt return, in the Michigan-Ohio State game, he took a punt return back. He would play reverses. And I think Tommy Reese is going to look at somebody like a Kool-Aid, if he's on fire one game, say he's taking a punt return back, and, he's got a pick six for a touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Saban looks over to Tommy Reese and say, man, let's put this guy in on offense, give him a reverse or something, similar to how Michigan will utilize Charles Woodson. But I wanted to talk about Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid has that type of athletic ability to impact the game offensively, defensively, as well as special teams wise, and he could have that Charles Woodson impact where he takes over a game in that capacity. So I mentioned Kool-Aid, I mentioned Kendrick Law, I mentioned Justice Hayes, as my brother Van Edward says, sweet Justice Hayes. Yeah. Yeah, listen, Kool-Aid needs to play like Gatorade to win the Heisman. Listen, he needs to have at least, if he's going to win the Heisman, he needs to have at least 5 to 7 interceptions, couple pick sixes, couple punt returns. He needs to have a couple touchdowns on the offensive side of the game. Yeah, that could be big numbers, but Alabama's got to be winning crazy, like a couple games with multiple picks, just where he could have that type of impact. So, good comment about Kool-Aid. Ben Edwards says, listen, if Kool-Aid, I love Kool-Aid, but he can't win Heisman, Dallin Turner wins it. Listen, speaking of D linemen that could have been in the Heisman running, we know a couple years ago, Aiden Hutchinson, the talented defensive lineman, coming out of Michigan. He was a Heisman finalist, and everybody was saying, listen, Will Anderson should be there. Will Anderson has way better numbers against tougher competition than Aiden Hutchinson, but you know how it is. But listen, Dallas Turner, I think if Dallas Turner wants to win the Heisman, his numbers he needs to at least have about 17 to 20 sacks, at least double-digit tackles for loss, maybe a couple fumble recoveries, maybe a block punt. Like, he needs to be in his bag in order to win the Heisman, to kind of be a Heisman finalist like a Aiden Hutchinson or Will Anderson should have been that year. But yeah, Kool-Aid. I think Kool-Aid has that type of impact. So man, y'all are rolling. Jeff Stapleton says, listen, I would love to see Kool-Aid pick Ewers off and take it to the house. Yeah, I think it's important, not only Kool-Aid, but you look at Earl Little, you look at Malachi Moore. I'm going to talk about our secondary because our guys have been working out, training in the Birmingham area with Justin Woodall, two-time national championship champion winner, but probably the top football trainer that I know, all in one is football, baseball in Birmingham, and he's training, working out with Malachi Moore, Kool-Aid, who I mentioned, Caleb Downs was working out with him, even Jaden Keys. So he was teaching technique. And so I think it's important for all those guys that in the secondary, this year, that not only we play tight coverage, but we be ball hawks. We be ball hawks. Like I mentioned, the receiver room, how they need to be ball hawks, like Judy and Ruggs and Smitty and all those guys where when the ball is in the air, it is our ball. So I think it goes for the secondary as well, starting with Kool-Aid. Listen, when the ball is in the air, not only do we need to shut down, lock down the defender, but we need to have the better ball skills and pick the ball off. Not only the mixes, like we did that year with Minka Fitzpatrick, Eddie Jackson. I mean, these guys could turn over scoring so quick. You look at Deron Payne, even on the defensive line, Jonathan Allen. So we need to have our whole defense just being able to be turnover machine, but turn that turnover into points. I think that's what really separates Alabama. Listen, we can start versus Quinn Ewers, picking them off. He can get 2 pick sixes. So, yeah. Man, y'all are rolling. Great comments right here. Listen, Ben Edwards says Kool-Aid picks off Ewers, does the George Teague stride into the end zone. And let's talk about George Teague. To me, George Teague, he has some of the most impactful, really made me want to become an Alabama fan. Watching David Palmer, when I first saw the Deuces lose, I was like, this is unreal. And then watching Alabama win that 92 national championship game led by Gene Stallings, and George Teague made 2 of the greatest plays to me that are my favorite Alabama plays. Easily top 5. When Miami, the quarterback threw it to the receiver, Miami receiver streaking down the sideline down there in New Orleans in the Sugar Bowl. And listen, George Teague took an angle, walked him down, stripped the ball from him and turned it around, got the ball back for Alabama. I thought that was a great play. Then he made another play. I think we had a pick 6, and he high stepped into the end zone. I mean, to me, that is an infamous play. I mean, him and watching those 2 plays and watching David Palmer, I was just like, oh my goodness, I love Alabama football. So yes, I need Kool-Aid to pick off Ewers and do the high step. But don't get a flag and don't get on Coach Steele's backside. We don't want you to get chewed out. Listen, Jeff Stapleton has a great point. He said Texas game will be one of Bama's statement games at LSU. The Vols know what they did to get the team mad. Yeah, it's going to be different. Like I said, I think this team has that swagger, has that hunger, has that mentality to go out there and, kind of prove themselves. They haven't been in the championship past couple years. We haven't been in the SEC championship the past year. So I think we're looking to have that hunger, to kind of have that top dog mentality, the mindset to go out there and be dominant and get to number 19 and win number 19. So somebody had a great comment. Oh man, where is it? Oh yeah, Carla Hinton says, who will be the true freshman this year? You got I guess that's the eye emoji. Listen, I mentioned Justin Haynes. I think he's going to be impactful freshman. And I think Caleb Downs. Man, this guy was probably, in my opinion, probably the top player in the country, all positions, in my opinion, coming out of last year for this class of 2023. I mean, to me, he was unreal. So I think it's going to come down to, I think Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes potentially I think they're going to have high probability of being freshman All-American. And I think those 2 guys are just unreal. They're close. They kind of have the same mindset. And like I said, this 2023 class is looking to push the older guys. They're not going to waste any time. And I think having Coach Saban as a leadership, having these coaches, having creative coordinators on the offensive, defensive end that's going to utilize the best talent and the range and orchestrate all this talent and make their statement. Listen, it's going to be intense. So I think two names, Caleb Downs and Sweet Justice Haynes, as they like to say. So great comment right there. As Spencer says, great question, Carla. Van Edwards knows what I'm talking about. David Palmer, the deuce is loose, man. He can play receiver, running back, DB, punt return, kick returner, kicker. He could do it all. Coach, he could do it all. David Palmer, man, I'll never forget seeing the Deuce when I was a kid and seeing that 92 team, George Teague, high step in the end zone. I was just, man. So that 92 team, always special to me in my heart. Stephen Hicks says, we're going to do rapid fire here. He says, we got a lot of good freshmen hungry, ready to eat. Listen, I mentioned Caleb Downs. I mentioned Justice Haynes. You look at, let's see, who else is coming in? Caden Proctor, McVay, Olas Alanine. We've got some guys that are looking to make their mark on the defensive end, on the offensive line as well. Jeff Stedman makes a great point. He says, listen, Haynes is a breakout freshman player, but Benson is really good. Look to see what he'll do when the season starts. I think when I think of Malik Benson, I always automatically think of, that he's going to have kind of like a Jameson Williams type effect where he comes in and he's just so dynamic of a playmaker. He would probably, be one of the top receivers going into next year's draft. It's going to be exciting. But, yeah, Haynes is that guy as well. William Bryant said, is this September yet? No, it is. We got to go through the 4th of July first, but we're getting close. I'm excited. So, Van Edwards says, listen, I got a third name for you for breakout freshman of the year. Not only Justice Haynes and Caleb Downs, but Keon Keelan. Listen, this kid is unreal. We lost Will Anderson, and to pick up this type of talent, Keon Keelan, probably the top edge rusher coming out of the country. Listen, I think he has potential to be as well breakout freshman. And I'll throw Caden Proctor in there as well, or Ola Salanine or McVay, or it's a lot of guys. I think they can make a name for themselves to be freshmen All-American. So, yeah. Great comment by Brian Green. Brian Green is on it. He's cooking tonight. He says, don't sleep on Richard Young, the talented out of South Florida. I mean, this guy is explosive as they come. And I think he's going to be one of those running backs, when McClellan and Miller and Haynes is ran through, and it's like the third quarter or, certain packages. And we're just going to let Richard Young, let him take over the rest of the game. And defenses are going to be so tired having to go against fresh legs, looking at trying to stop a Richard Young with the depth on the offensive line as well as the running back. So, listen, it's going to be interesting. It's going to look like how Alabama running back room looked in the past with Derrick Henry, Yeldon, Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, all those guys. Well, we just mix and match and just had those guys, wearing down defenses all the time, putting up 40, 50 points a lot on defenses where they just we took the will out of teams because we were so physical. And I think we can do that with Richard Young this year. Great comments. Let's go rapid fire. Somebody had a great comment. Van Edwards says, listen, Richard Young ain't no joke either. Brian Green, great point. Everybody's making a lot of Van Edwards says Keon's going to be Von Miller type, I believe, before he leaves the capstone. Yeah, he's going to have that type of defensive impact on the edge, getting to the quarterback, beating guys, ripping, sweep, swimming, power rush. He's going to have that type of impact. Another player kind of reminds me of him, maybe of a little bit of a Jason Taylor, almost more athletic Jason Taylor. But, yeah, maybe has a little Chase Young if he gets a little bit bigger. But he's going to have that type of impact on the defensive end. So yeah, let's go rapid fire. Lyndon Peace says, although he's not a freshman, Jam Miller is going to be a beast. Reminds me of Josh Jacobs. A great point. He does remind me of Josh Jacobs, that running back who's just so explosive and just physical. He might not be the biggest guy, but he plays with he plays like he's got bricks in his pocket, and he's so explosive. You look at a Jam Miller, and it's easy to see why you make the parallels to Josh Jacobs. I think where our running back room has so much depth and talent, we're going to be able to, play so many different guys, and guys are going to get touches. You're going to be glad to be a running back at the University of Alabama under Tommy Rees. Just Davis says we need a player like Judy to take the top off the defense. I think we do have a player. I think you look at a Bond. I think Bond could do that. I think with his explosiveness, his speed, a Kobe Prentice in the slot, but a Malik Benson. Don't sleep on Malik Benson. Right there. Let's see. Yeah, hit that like button. All with me on button, leaving the tie. Bell is on another on a mission. Yeah, Jaheim Old's gonna have a big year. I think he's gonna have a big year, especially looking at the defensive line that's been successful. This is time for him to make a way, for him to have a big 2 years coming up. Oh yeah, don't sleep on Jans Pierre. Talent coming out of Central Phoenix City. That guy is coming off the edge. He's explosive. So not only him and Keon Keeley, Jan Pierre is explosive as they coming off the edge. So it's going to be interesting to see. So we'll end right here. So sounds like national champions forever. That's what we want to do. And so shouts out to the student section. Carla Hidden, Van Edwards, and William Bryant. Brian Green, Linda P, Spencer 6-0, Van Edwards, James Knox. Listen, y'all keep the show so interactive, so engaging. We cover a lot of topics. So I think at the end of the day, we all say roll tide. We find a way to bring it back to Alabama, and we want Bama to win the national championships. And I think we discussed how Alabama is going to be impactful. So this has been another great, exciting episode of Football University. Thank you for all the fans in the student section. Listen, come back next weekend. I think we're going to be on. I know it's the 3rd, but we will put, if not, we'll put out an announcement on the CTS-Sports room just because we know it's the 4th of July weekend. And everybody be safe on the 4th of July. Enjoy the Independence Day and enjoy the family and friends. And listen, let's get excited and get ready for another show on Football University. Here at Football University with Matt Caddell. Thanks for tuning in. I will see you soon. Peace.